At this point, let me just say that I can't believe a whole year has passed since we were here together in this setting. You may recall that last year I began by noting the shame I felt in response to my father's rather unexpected semi-public announcement that after a vacation he and I were both going on a diet. Sadly, the diet hasn't worked very well, and now there are other attacks on my physical self-image, I will confess. A few nights ago, I was home with my wife, Paige, and my big, strapping sophomore son who plays varsity football came walking by. And after he got out of earshot, Paige turns to me and in fairly gushing tones just said, "Do you see that? You see how handsome our son is? Do you see how strong and muscular he is? Where does he get that?" Anyway, in the spirit of marital loyalty, I will not make further comment, but having dragged us into the personal, let me stay there for just a minute. If this last year has gone fast, the last 4 years have gone at lightning speed. For reasons I cannot fully explain, last spring's graduation ceremony caused a fairly profound moment of personal reflection for me. I don't know if it was the size of the record-breaking graduate class, the quality of the invited speeches, or the tighter time frame and hitch-free process of marching in and through the program, but it felt like a watershed moment, and it caused a cascade of contemplation about my 4 years here at UVU and what we've accomplished together. And considering all of this progress and what it took to get here, my mind went next to a very vivid moment during my final interview for the presidency. At one point, a regent asked me if I got the job, how long would I stay? For reasons I won't belabor here, I just made a kind of off-the-cuff response saying, well, maybe a soft target of 7 years, which I didn't know at the time, but turns out that's the average length of a university presidency these days. But recollecting this exchange startled me. If my original soft target was 7 years, I held to that, I would only have 3 left. Thanks for not cheering at that point. This just seemed too short. At a minimum, I felt compelled to adjust my target for at least a year, taking me to 8. This seemed good for other reasons too, including the fact that another 4-year horizon takes us to the fall of 2017, which just happens to be UVU's 175th anniversary. Besides, no, sorry. Just wanted to throw an extra century in there, so Ian's rubbing off, so I'm sorry, Ian, I was going to behave myself today. Our 75th anniversary. Thanks for the few gasps in the audience that gave that away. Anyway, the promise of preparing for and participating in such an exciting marker in our institution's history, this is exciting. It lends itself nicely to something we haven't done very much at UVU but must start doing. We're now to a stage where we must begin a regular rolling process of longer-term strategic planning. For many large, mature, complex institutions, 4 to 5 year strategic plans are something of a norm. For us, it is more than just a matter of prudence to do so in the face of various forces threatening higher education today, forces I've discussed at length in a previous State of the University address. We will have to be strategic both to survive and to thrive and reach our fullest potential. And as transparent and as collaborative as our current budget and planning processes are, it currently operates on year-to-year thinking, which significantly inhibits the institutional strength that can come from a more sophisticated, longer-view planning process. In consequence of this thinking, I met this summer with our deans and other senior division heads across campus and asked they begin developing a rolling 4-year strategic plan for their area so that such plans can be presented during the late November, early December public discussions about the budget. I stress the rolling nature of these plans, far from being cast in concrete, or worse yet, published in a glossy institutional report that will be published once, announced to great fanfare, then pleasantly set on an administrator's shelf, never to see the light of day again. These plans will be reviewed and updated every year, giving them a dynamic and responsive quality, all too often missing in university planning processes. This will also provide ample opportunity for departmental input, which will be important. Thus, I invite you all to start thinking now about your areas and their future development, passing along your thoughts to your chair, who will in turn be visiting with your dean. As you do this thinking, please keep in mind the following. If strategy is about anything, it's about making informed choices that produce unique value and therefore sustainable and successful outcomes. With respect to the choice side of this formulation, this means that you have to choose to do some things and with equal intention choose not to do other things. Such decisions are sometimes difficult, but often they must be made for the organization to overcome threats and seize the opportunities that will enable the institution to flourish. As you work to help formulate the strategic directions of your respective areas, recognize that choices will have to be made. Plans that come forward looking like highly traditional, expansive developments of every discipline and then every subfield of that discipline, because that is how it looked at your graduate institution, will not work. As a result, such plans will not be encouraged or funded. That is not intended to sound like a threat. It's simply a statement of the facts and the realities of UVU's particular environment and distinctive mission. This leads to a second point. For your choices to be informed, you must give careful, realistic, and creative thought to the larger UVU environment and all that means for the financial, technological, and regional obstacles and opportunities we face. And there should be an equal accounting of the significant work that has already been done in helping to define the overall strategic aim of the university. Said another way, these strategic plans need not start, indeed must not start, from scratch. We speak often here of UVU's unique educational mission. I recognize that it is fairly easy for institutions to trot out a qualifier like unique when describing their profile. However, as I have surveyed the landscape of higher education across the nation, and as I burrow into the data provided by the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, the more I realize just how truly unique we are. First, the landscape. If one considers, by the box on the screen, the full spectrum, representing the full spectrum of higher ed institutions in this country, we have chosen to no longer be a fully dedicated community college whose target is only 1 to 2 year programs and is primarily focused on access issues. On the other hand, we are not a Research One institution with a full array of doctoral programs and energetic peer-reviewed research agendas. We are no longer a state college, but nor are we even a regional comprehensive university with a broad selection of PhD programs. What we are is a regional teaching university with a broad array of bachelor's degrees and a few selected master's degrees whose primary aim is student success. That, in and of itself, is a fairly targeted mission and one I'm very proud to be part of. Here I will note that our teaching mission is not lost on the senior administration, as virtually every member of my cabinet now teaches roughly once a year. Last year, I thoroughly enjoyed teaching an honors section of ethics and values with Elaine Engelhardt. This year, I look forward to team teaching a senior seminar in American political thought with another colleague spring semester. In any case, let's look at how our mission narrows even farther. Unlike a number of regional comprehensive universities, we have remained open admissions and committed to developing and promoting 1 to 2 year programs. But among those open admission institutions, we then add a distinctive layer of seriousness with the implementation of our structured enrollment program, which directs students within the institution according to their varying levels of preparation, and the build-out of high-quality bachelor's and master's degrees. And we do all of this in a way that is focused on engaged learning as a broad pedagogical approach across the curriculum. If that mission were not narrow enough, perhaps this last point will drive home our uniqueness. We are accomplishing all of this on a scale that is second to none. Let me illustrate this further. Here's a map of the United States with the institutions of higher education represented by circles. The larger the circle, the larger the enrollment. The color breakdown is according to offerings: green for associate's degrees, orange for bachelor's, yellow for master's. You'll notice on the left that there are nearly 4,500 institutions of higher education. Now, if we take enrollment to at least 10,000 head count, what immediately happens to the total number on the lower left? We drop to 600 institutions out of 4,500. Next, if we count just those that are public institutions, we dropped to 500 institutions. If we look for those that are open admissions, our numbers are cut in half to 250. Look at how much green fills the screen, thus signaling those that are remaining are primarily community colleges offering two-year degrees. Now, if we look at those institutions that have at least 10% of the offerings as associate's degrees and 10% as bachelor's degrees, the number shoots all the way down to 10. If we take that to just 20% bachelor's and associates, where in fact we are roughly 50-50 today, we go down to 5 institutions. And if we then bump the enrollment to 30,000 plus, we stand as the only institution in the nation with that profile. This suggests one of two things. Either we are completely crazy, or we are pioneering an innovative model on a scale that will lead the way for many other institutions across the nation. I believe it is the latter. And let me tell you why. Many institutions and systems of higher education across the nation are today also trying to solve their version of the serious inclusive riddle. That is, they too are working to promote to increase rigor, quality, and educational sophistication while still providing access, support, and programmatic options for students who may not be prepared or fully interested in seeking a highly rigorous four-year degree. But our unique model is doing just that already and on an unmatched scale. What the state and our students get with UVU is effectively 2 institutions in one with all the efficiencies of one set of faculty, staff, and administrators, and a rare, smooth laddering opportunity for so many students who enter believing they are only meant for a 1 or 2 year degree program, only to find they discover the confidence they need to pursue a 4-year or even a master's program. Other states are just now waking to the virtues of our model. Institutions in Washington and Florida have recently started to allow their community colleges to award bachelor's degrees. And as recently as a fundraising trip to New York, I saw an example of another growing phenomenon, a Research One university adopting or housing a neighboring community college to expand access and provide seamless transitions. We are already doing this and doing it by the tens of thousands of students a semester. We are unique, and I have all of you to thank for it, making it work on a daily basis with all of the inevitable tension and trade-offs inherent in such an effort. Your commitment to this dual mission is what makes our work so successful and exciting. Now, as unique as we are, I am still suggesting that we need to come out of this year's strategic planning process with even further refinements to the nature and uniqueness of the institution. Identifying strategic areas of investment and effort will maximize our impact and our ability to deliver on our responsibility as the higher education provider for this region. Let me say a word now about how some of those university level initiatives and directions that I see being something of a focus for the next several years as we build towards our 75th anniversary may help further define us. One of the marks of a success of our university strategy is that students are voting with their feet. They are coming to UVU in droves and staying. Well, maybe not this year quite, but I think we all trust that for the next year or two, this is an anomaly. In any case, our setting and particular approach has made us very popular, and we face a variety of administrative imperatives as a result. Underneath this heading, we have identified 3 key activities: managing growth, operating effectively, and securing resources. Right up at the top of any effort to manage growth sits the need to continue our aggressive physical build-out of the campus. Having built over the last 3 years a new facilities building, business resource center, a spectacular science building, in September we will cut the ribbon on a brand new We Care Center on 400 West. This new building will quadruple, if not quintuple, the number of students, typically lower income female students with children, who can be served in a safe and caring environment. In addition, there will be a certain percentage of spots allocated for children of faculty and staff who may also benefit from an on-campus daycare service in order to focus on fulfilling their professional responsibilities. In the coming months, more information will be provided about how you may access this tremendous service. We're also in full swing on 2 additional buildings in the heart of the campus. The Student Life and Wellness Building is scheduled to be completed this March and will transform our ability to deliver on a university environment that successfully cultivates the mind, body, and spirit of our students. We also just broke ground on a new $55 million, 244,000 square foot classroom building, which, when completed in November of 2014, will contain 3,000 new classroom seats, a 1,000-seat auditorium, 20 new study areas, and over 200 new faculty and staff offices. While construction on this new facility has already cut into a good portion of parking on the north side of campus, I'm pleased to say that our 4-story paid parking structure will be open for use beginning next Monday. Stay tuned for more information about the use of this new parking facility. With the addition of these buildings, I believe we are close to building out the footprint of our main campus. I say we're close because there is at least one more building that I believe vitally needs to complete the basic structure of our university campus. In the coming year, you will see a number of events and materials as part of a targeted campaign to raise money and secure legislative support for our top facilities request, a new building for the arts. School of the Arts sounds overrepresented today, or we just have a lot of collegiality. That's a beautiful thing. As it stands, our current facilities simply do not even come close to aligning with the caliber of our faculty and students in this area. From a pedagogical standpoint alone, we have no greater capital facility need on this campus. And so finding both the public and the private resources that it will take to build this, most likely a multi-year project, jumps right up to the top of my list of priorities over the next few years. This is not to say that we don't have other things in mind for the future. We do, from expanding our Heber operation, to refurbishing Canyon Park Culinary, to establishing a physical presence in downtown Provo, to expanding the front of campus for more administrative space and an extension of the Woodbury School of Business, the state's largest business school, to developing our Thanksgiving Point property, to establishing small outposts in the southern and western parts of the county. Our plans are not small. We also have a stunning stained glass project which depicts the history of knowledge. We anticipate that this piece will go into the library, making the library a destination site for visitors from all over the state. Our target to install and unveil this project will be during our 75th anniversary celebration. Finally, we have secured 100 acres at Vineyard, or what many of you may know as the old Geneva property. Right now, this acreage has been built out into our intramural fields, but the purchase is of a larger investment in additional land to expand UVU's footprint. We are looking to secure an additional 125 acres at a time when prices are low and in what I like to call our Wilson-Sorensen moment. This is in reference to our institution's second president, who with great vision and against the wishes of skeptics, decided to purchase 180 acres on an old gravel pit and sand hill in Orem for a small technical school in Provo. Well, we can see how that decision has turned out. As we are here bursting at the seams, we have to be just as good to the next generation as Wilson-Sorensen was to us. With the acquisition of the land at Vineyard, or with our current acreage at Thanksgiving Point, and with additional possibilities for sites in Provo and Payson, UVU is in a prime spot to develop a satellite campus strategy. As you can see, these sites also align with the current and proposed front-runner train stops at each of our targeted site locations. In the coming months, we will continue the development of our strategic plan for satellite campuses and invite your input. In terms of operating efficiently, it must be recognized that technology is transforming higher education. We've seen that on brilliant display today. All across the world, leaders and educators are exploring ways to improve the delivery of content to respond to the changing learning styles and circumstances of today's students. At UVU, we've made significant progress in the scope and breadth of the courses we are offering via the internet and through live interactive courses, broadcast. Many of you have helped develop hot-bunked hybrid courses that keep together the fine efficiencies of the online course and the magic of the classroom. These efforts must continue with even greater energy and focus, for as ambitious as our building plans are, they still will not be enough to accommodate the raft of students headed our way. This is to say nothing of what the demand for and face of education is likely to look like in a few years as the first truly digital literate generation comes of age, right along with an ever more dazzling set of technological tools. That said, our efforts in distance education must resist getting caught up in fleeting fads and be thoughtful about how to maintain quality and standards and best support our key educational aims. To this end, I am asking Ian to organize a committee of knowledgeable individuals to review the state of our technology-developed courses, programs, and support structures and propose ways to expand and enhance this important mode of delivering education to our resident students and perhaps even those beyond our service region. It is important that we move with dispatch as the application of technology in education is progressing rapidly. I hope to see an initial report by the end of fall semester. Even as UVU focuses on developing the people, programs, and infrastructure required to succeed in its new role as a university, the planning and investment has been required to establish a more robust fundraising enterprise, which is increasingly capable of supporting overarching mission of student success by generating private support for scholarships, facilities, program, and faculty awards. By thoughtfully investing in personnel and programs and committing at least a quarter of my time or more to fundraising, we have systematically strengthened our staff, our volunteer boards, undertaken successful fund drives and mini campaigns, and begun attracting new donors to UVU among individuals, corporations, and foundations at record levels, both here and in our community and even out of state. The Council for the Advancement of the Support of Education, or CASE, is the nation's foremost resource for authority on quality collegiate fundraising. Recently, CASE assessed the last 3 years of fundraising data for nearly 1,000 higher education development enterprises. I have to say that I'm pleased and proud to note that CASE named UVU's fundraising program as the most improved in the nation among four-year liberal arts institutions. In the years ahead, we will continue this relentless effort to expand and improve our fundraising ability, increasingly calling upon our deans and other division heads to actively engage in the solicitation of private monies to support our vital campus programs. In addition to seeking substantial private funds, our work continues apace to sorely needed state monies. Over the past 10 years, UVU has not received additional growth money, even as we grew faster than every other institution, increasing by nearly 10,000 students, our student headcount during that time. During the last two legislative sessions, however, we have been somewhat successful in some much-needed equity money to compensate for the inequitable decrease in percentage of state tax fund support we have received over the years. All I can tell you is that right now, a good 5 months before the legislative session, we are hard at work making our case for an ever more substantial amount of equity funding than that we received last year. Along with securing the arts building, this is at the top of my priority list moving forward. At this point, I would like to point to progress achieved and plans for our core theme of establishing a more inclusive institution of higher education. We've led the state on research, conferences, dialogues, and initiatives on women in education. From the statewide research and convening effort led alternatively by Susan Madsen, Cheryl Hanowitz, Susan Thackeray, and Kathy Debenham, to the establishment of our Women's Success Center with Ann Wyropro, to the building of the new We Care Center, we have been aggressively addressing the problem of low participation in Utah higher education among women. Concomitant with that, we have focused internally on an expansion of opportunities for women in leadership and career development. Michelle Taylor and Linda Macon, both recently elevated to vice presidents, and our internal leadership development program, UVSelf, has consistently increased participation of women, providing the platform for greater discussion about what they face professionally at UVU and within the state of Utah. There's so much more we could discuss here in detail, like the continued expansion of our highly successful Latino initiative, our nascent Native American initiative, which is already expanding opportunities for nearly 350 Native American students at UVU from 30 tribes and nations. Our Global Spotlight program is now in its 4th year. our establishing of family bathrooms and change policies on anti-discrimination to cover sexual orientation, and our numerous conversations on interreligious understanding and appreciation. Yes, we have done much, but we can still do more. That is why I'm asking my assistant, Kyle Reyes, to coordinate the development of a dedicated 4 to 5 year strategic inclusion plan for the university. Dr. Reyes has spent the last 3 years consulting with institutions throughout the state on ways that they can improve issues of inclusivity and diversity. Frankly, his expertise in these areas is one of the reasons I hired him in the first place. I invite you to contact him with your ideas and recommendations on ways UVU can continue to deliver on our commitment to inclusivity. For the past 6 years, engaged learning has been a vital component of our identity and mission as an institution. Our collective commitment to offering students opportunities for growth and professional development has made an enormous impact over these short 5 years since the Carnegie Foundation designated us as a community-engaged institution. It has been particularly gratifying to listen to students tell their stories of how they were able to leverage their UVU experience in building their resume. As we look ahead as an institution, we are redoubling our efforts to cultivate and build even more engaged learning opportunities for our students. Our aim is for every student to have opportunities for rich, meaningful connections with faculty, their peers, and their surrounding community, and to have that documented as part of their educational experience. Toward this end, we are pleased to announce the launch of the Engaged Learning University Distinction. This program offers students the choice to pursue activities in the areas of leadership, service learning, and professional engagement. The Office of Engaged Learning will facilitate this program in partnership with the Volunteer and Service Learning Center, the Center for the Advancement of Leadership, and the Institute for Professional Engagement. Graduating students with both diplomas and resumes is not just a marketing slogan, it is our way of doing business. To you faculty, I would stress that, as I have said before, engaged learning does not mean one thing or apply only to a handful of disciplines. And it is not one more set of activities to add to your basic responsibilities as a faculty member. Rather, it is an orientation towards your still core responsibilities of teaching, scholarship, and service. What distinguishes UVU and engaged learning is not so much the kinds of activities we do, but the way in which we integrate them in constructing a more active and holistic student experience. We are committed to doing all we can to provide you with the resources and support for projects and activities that cultivate the character and experience necessary for students to pursue their professions and meaningfully participate in their communities and their nations. In the coming year, we will have the opportunity to apply for renewal for our Carnegie classification as community engaged institution. This will provide the occasion to build upon a solid foundation and allow us to take engaged learning to new heights as an institution. To take engaged learning to the next level, we need the commitment and effort of each division on campus. As we move forward, we look to hire faculty and staff who demonstrate commitment to our institutional profile. Our rank and tenure policies and budget practices in particular will need to increasingly reflect our commitment to student success through inclusion and engagement. Giving this careful thought in your 4-year planning efforts will be vital. I'm deeply appreciative of all of you who commit yourself each day to the success of our students through effective use of this pedagogical and scholarly stance. With respect to our commitment as a serious institution of higher learning, there are literally hundreds of examples I could share, and in fact, I do share when I'm out on the road and talking about the university and about what each of you are doing individually to enhance the rigor, sophistication, and quality of a UVU education. But here, let me focus for just a minute on what we are doing institution-wide in transforming the fundamentally transforming the start of the school year in the name of seriousness. By simultaneously implementing an admissions deadline and purge of non-paying students before the semester begins, we now start the school year with more available for those students most serious about coming and completing the semester. Just 2 years ago, we turned away roughly 1,200 students who tried to register for classes that were held by students who never paid tuition and probably never showed up for class. That problem is now gone. Last year, we launched a freshman convocation, as Ian described, a most successful event, 900 freshmen, 2,000 family members. This inaugural event set a wonderful university tone. To my mind, the single most important signal sent that evening came from the overwhelming number of faculty who showed up in academic regalia. I plead with you to do that again. And yes, you will have to sit through a Matt and Dan Fairbanks show of sculpting in history, but just do it for the students, please. For them to see you there in your robes, adding to the gravitas of what it means to pursue a university education, sets just the right atmosphere to challenge the students, as we do, to sign an I commit card, effectively committing themselves to complete a degree at UVU. The response from students and parents alike was overwhelmingly positive. Thank you for those who came last year making the effort, and please join us this year again in this effective tactic to foster greater culture of completion here at UVU. And last year, we implemented structured enrollment. For those who are new or may not have been aware of the details of this new policy, let me briefly review. If students do not meet certain enrollment benchmarks, they are still admitted to UVU in the spirit of our inclusive open admission policy. But their university experience becomes much more structured. This allows UVU to be inclusive on entrance, but signals to K through 12 students that if they want to be truly prepared for UVU education, they must meet certain enrollment benchmarks. Such changes have been met with great enthusiasm by our K through 12 partners, including all of the superintendents in our K through 16 Alliance. And the new policies are already showing some signs of success. Some of you may have already seen this at my State of the University address. I think it's important enough it's worth revisiting. What you'll notice first is a fairly typical trend for most institutions. It certainly has been historically for UVU. We measure student enrollment at the third week and then again at the end of the semester. Historically, we've had quite a few students, many of whom were those who were registering late into the semester and not paying tuition, drop out after the third week count. Now let me show you what happened in the first year of structured enrollment. Your first reaction to the dip in enrollment may suggest that the new policy may not have been such a good idea. But there are many reasons for this decline in enrollment last year. Some of the dip was due, no doubt, to the admissions change, but that hardly explains all of it, or even most of it. The economy started to pick up, and with numbers of students indicating they returned to work. And we limited our concurrent enrollment delivery to focus on our service region rather than effectively being the concurrent enrollment provider for the whole state. But here's the significant part. For the first time, we went up by the end of term. What this means is that we not only kept virtually every student who walked in the door on the first day of class, but we picked up a few more students on the second block. This increase in retention will no doubt translate to increase in graduation rates if we stay strong in supporting these students and in supporting these policies during tough and unusual periods of enrollment decline. A final, if somewhat extended, word on seriousness here as we close. As noted previously, any good organizational strategy must have an informed sense of the environment in which it operates. On a national scale, one message could not be clearer. Institutions of higher education must be responsive to the growing need for education in science, technology, engineering, and math. According to a noted study by Georgetown University Center on Education and Workforce, by 2020, the economy will face a shortage of 5 million workers not adequately trained for service in STEM-related fields. Similar studies from the federal government's Bureau of Labor Statistics and coming out of this private sector by macroeconomic advisors confirm the same basic point. Jobs are coming to the economy. They will require a certain kind of post-secondary training in STEM-related areas, and if universities fail to respond to this, they do so at a great peril. Now that I have the excitement of at least 2 or 3 colleges, and the rest of you rolling your eyes saying enough is enough about STEM, I'd ask you all just to hear me out in full. In addition to the sweeping research and analysis at national levels pointing in this direction, there is also the overwhelming input of our local business leaders. As you may know, UVU is nested in an increasingly famous cluster of information technology and software development firms that are exploding along the Wasatch Front. Both in and out of the state, the area is becoming more and more known as Silicon Slopes, drawing from the image of Silicon Valley, like dynamics set up against the base of the Rocky Mountains. As of today, more than 5,200 high-tech companies, from startups to nearly household names like Intel, Micron, and Adobe, have located themselves in this fair state of ours, employing roughly 66,000 people and paying salaries 58% higher on average than statewide annual non-agricultural wages. And while the lion's share of these firms are information technology and software related, the life sciences and biotech fields come in as a strong second rung. Finally, what all these firms come with is not just a penchant of technological innovation and creativity, but a keen sense of entrepreneurialism and a shrewd marketing management and a shrewd set of marketing management and financial practices. It's difficult for me to convey just how thirsty, even downright parched, these firms are for talented workforce with advanced training in relevant fields. I hear it again and again and again from our local leaders. What can UVU do to produce more graduates who are ready and equipped to fill jobs that currently go to out-of-state folks, or worse yet, go unfulfilled in our current economy? One thing that's interesting about these requests is that they are coming in for technically trained certificate and two-year degree holders for certain jobs almost as much as are the requests for bachelor's and master's degree holders for other jobs. With our dual mission in place, UVU is uniquely situated to respond to these demands like no other school in the country, as I have shown. Given our existing capacity, our potential, our local need, and the wealth of student opportunity, we would be most unwise not to capitalize on this as something of a focus moving forward. The precise way and level of doing this will have to be worked out over the next few months and years, not the next few weeks, but it will have to be worked out, and as we build our long-range plans moving forward. Now, to my friends and colleagues in other disciplines, let me say just a few things. First, keep in mind that linkages between the tech community and Stanford University has not exactly been a bad thing for Stanford's English department, whose 34 faculty now constitute one of the best programs in the country, currently sitting at number 2 in the U.S. News rankings. My point here is that some focused investments in STEM education with an eye towards entrepreneurialism do not mean that everything else goes on hold. Certainly such investments will not define all of my primary activities over the next 4 years or so. As I have already noted, my highest capital facilities project, which will require a substantial amount of presidential fundraising and politicking, is an arts building. Let me elaborate here to say that this is such a priority not only due to the fact that we have patently inadequate facilities given the quality of our programs. It is also a reflection of my own broader philosophical view about the purposes of a genuine university education. I think, as you know, I myself pursued with anything but regret an active double major in English and political philosophy, neither discipline sitting at the top of any list of growth industries the last time I checked. My position was then, as it is now, only it is informed by years of additional observation and confirmation, that perhaps the most critical elements of a university education cannot be confined to or provided by instruction exclusively aimed at producing the immediately and narrowly employable, as may be defined by markets, managers, and policymakers. Even if such were the chief aim of a university education, it would not even be achieved, frankly, by a curriculum and pedagogy that proceeded simply with an efficient, I put it in quotes, undeviating focus on entry-level, industry-specific job training. If we are going to cite the Georgetown study on employment and workforce needs, we must also take a look at the recent findings of a study conducted for the Association of American Colleges and Universities, published in one of the few national educational journals I regularly read, called Liberal Education. This survey, conducted with hundreds of employers across the nation who typically hire 2 to 4 year degree holders, elicited 11 key findings. I will not share them all, but I will read the first verbatim. Employers are highly focused on innovation as critical to the success of their companies, and they report that the challenges their employees face today are more complex and require a broader skill set than in the past. Notably, employers indicate that they prioritize critical thinking, communication, and complex problem-solving skills over a job candidate's major field of study when making hiring decisions. Even when employability is at the top of the list of educational considerations, one can see that true, long-term, and prosperous employability depends upon an array of skills that go well beyond what might most immediately be seen as the controlling qualification for ground-level success in even the more scientifically and technologically advanced sectors of our economy. Beyond all those listed in the first finding, like innovation, critical thinking, communication, and complex problem-solving skills, the study also goes on to explain that employers place great premium on ethics, intercultural skills, civic capacity, and yes, I will say it because the study says it, various forms of engaged learning. While we might explore each of those skills and their connectedness to various schools of learning, let's just take the first one, innovation. Just this last year, we had 2 brilliant guests as part of the presidential lecture series, which, by the way, too few of you attended. They came from different worlds, but effectively shared the same message. Sir Ken Robinson, a world-renowned innovation expert and scholar of theater education, and Mark Potashny, internationally acclaimed molecular biologist and world-class violinist, both argued with sparkling wit and intelligence that creativity is not the sole domain of one discipline. It is, in fact, needed in all disciplines, but that the arts and humanities are particularly well suited for such. Of course, we need not look exclusively to academic minds and publications to make this argument. We might look at individual leaders themselves. One of the most dramatic moments came years ago when Steve Jobs came out on stage in his signature blue jeans and black faux turtleneck and stood beneath a gigantic set of signposts signaling the intersection of technology and the liberal arts in order to explain that such an intersection was built into their corporate DNA and stood as the secret sauce of Apple's truly historic success as one of the most innovative companies of all time. Though I believe all of this is true, and I've been happy to say it, I do want to make an even deeper point, though, about the nature and purposes of education. That which is being made at the university is not, in the final analysis, simply a talented workforce. To quote Wendell Berry, America's agrarian poet laureate, the thing being made in a university is humanity. To my mind, the most critical justification for ensuring that any university campus has a vibrant commitment to the performing and visual arts, humanities, and social science, in addition to STEM fields, is not finally because they too make students more employable, but because they bring our students to a fuller, richer, more nuanced, and wiser understanding of themselves, of their fellow human beings, and the beauties of the world around them found in art, music, literature, and the very earth itself. So, where does all of this leave us? Perhaps I can answer that with a short story from Norse mythology. It was said in the days of old that every year Thor made a circle around Middle-earth, beating back the enemies of order. Thor got older every year, and the circle occupied the gods, and the men grew smaller. The wisdom god, Woden, went out to the king of trolls and got him in an arm lock and demanded to know of him how order might triumph over chaos. "Give me your left eye," said the king of the trolls, "and I will tell you." Without hesitation, Woden gave up his left eye. "Now tell me," he said. The troll responded, "The secret is watch with both eyes." To beat back the enemies of order and forge a genuine, free, and humane life, we need, and our students need, both STEM and the liberal arts. Instilling in our students an eye for both is critical to whichever area they may choose. And so, even as we may, out of prudence and responsibility, make more investments in STEM training and options for our students in the near future. We must coordinately invigorate our attention to the design, expectation, and operation of our general education offerings, a project already underway, but one that must continue with renewed energy and attention in the time ahead. Beyond that, the faculty from each eye, if you will, might determine how to design and market courses or encourage activities to students from the other eye. Like other things at UVU we have discussed today, where excellence meets access and where solitary scholarship meets practical application, this will require what contemporary experts call integrative thinking. This is actually new language for an idea as old as Aristotle and practiced brilliantly in the statesmanship of Abraham Lincoln. Integrative thinking is the ability to constructively face the tensions of opposing models, and instead of choosing one at the expense of the other, generating a creative solution of the tension in the form of a new model that contains elements of the individual models but is superior to each. This is precisely what we are doing with our dual mission, and the same lessons of creativity and patience and ongoing dialogue will apply to our ability to navigate what has become in too many quarters a simple place of battle lines drawn between the two eyes of STEM and the liberal arts. And I stand utterly confident that just as we are refusing to buckle from the tensions that sometimes surface in the pursuit of our dual mission, but rather channel those tensions into something unique and path-breaking, so too we will find an intelligent and an innovative way to invest in STEM while preserving and encouraging the dynamic power of the arts, humanities, and social sciences. And, as always, let us never forget why we must do this. Not so much for the Steve Jobs vision of creating the most innovative company on the planet, but to foster the full lives of potential and beauty that walk into our classroom every single day of school. In that spirit, I would like to invite to the stage three very beautiful human beings you have all helped to cultivate and shape. They will come forward. First, we have here in her brilliant UVU green, Paula Rondon. Paula is a native of Venezuela and is currently the vice president of our International Student Council. She also seems to be on the presidential detail for dining services, which means I've eaten more dinners with her than my own family for the last 3 years. In a personal note to me, Paula noted that she came from a country where, quote, justice is not an option and freedom of speech is not a choice. So to her, UVU has become a true home, giving her opportunities to grow personally and professionally in ways she never dreamed of earlier. She thanks all who served as friend and mentor, but especially Chad Luke, Madeline Scott, Nancy Turley, Jim Peterson, Lisa Williamson, Suen Perez, Steve Crook, Lester Hellwell, Angie Carter, Brian Jensen, Anthony Terry, Barry Bartlett, and Marin Miyasaki. Next, we have the smooth and dashing Richard Brandt. Yeah, please. Next, we have the smooth and dashing Richard Branscombe. Richard is a dual English and philosophy major. I'd make a crack about degrees to nowhere, but I did that elsewhere and people thought I was serious, so I would undermine my entire talk today. So he's also whip smart, but he's very quick to credit much of his success to a number of faculty and staff who've supported him. From the honors program, Kate McPherson, Mike Shaw, Alan Hill, and Tiffany Nez. From the English department, Mark Pepper, Deb Thornton, Brian Whaley, Karen Anderson, and John Goschert. From the philosophy department, Shannon Mussett. And from the French department, Gloria Thomas Gilmore and Tammy Christensen. Richard says that this list is not exhaustive, but that represents those who have influenced him and motivated him academically. In addition to this support, Richard has found support from over 20 staff departments on campus, including Scoops, which he said saved his life on a daily basis, and Trio Student Support Services, where he currently works as a tutor. UVU has also impacted Richard's personal life as he met and married his wife, Sierra, who is also an honors student. Sierra is an English major who is applying for UVU's nursing program this semester. Please help me congratulate Richard on his success. Finally, we have Adonica Limon. Adonica is a double major in accounting and nursing. She's worked, I think, in virtually every office on campus except recycling, including serving in my office as my intern. Currently, she's accepted to a dual PhD program in nurse practitioner and pharmacy. Of course, if you know Adonica, you know that life has not always been so rosy for her. If I may, I will read a short passage from a letter she wrote me. As a newly divorced mother of 3 sons, the thought of returning to school literally scared the bejeebies out of me. You did misspell that. We'll take care of that later. Going on a wing and a prayer, and let's face it, an enormous leap of faith, I stepped foot onto the campus of UVU. It was then UVSC, with no idea of where to even begin. After meeting several angels from student services, I was admitted and enrolled in classes. I was officially a college student. Pursuing 2 degrees, accounting and nursing proved to be no small feat. Along my journey, I had many professors and faculty members who were critical for my growth, both professionally and personally. Some of my most memorable professors include Stephen Fulmer in English, Renee Van Buren in biology, Judge Anthony Terry in American Heritage, Michael Snapp, public speaking, Matthew Horn in chemistry, Eric Haney in statistics, Michael Shively and Don Homan in anatomy, Olga Kopp and Paul Bybee, biology, Bernard Kupka in organizational behavior, Steve Teeter in accounting, Jim Bailey in accounting, Justin Jacobs in chemistry, Jordan Doman in career prep, and the Smiths. That's Sheldon, Kevin, and Lynn in accounting, as opposed to the alternative rock band formed in Manchester in the mid-'80s. Ladies and gentlemen, what you see before you are 3 of the best reasons I know for doing what we do. Thank you for the countless hours you've spent teaching and engaging and supporting these and thousands of others just like them. Thank you for dedicating yourselves to a career focused on the development of other people. Thank you for being at UVU, for your lives that you will change this semester and many, many more. Have a spectacular year. Thank you very much.